All right,
Yeah,
so let's go ahead
lots of
and
new
dive in.
people.
I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to kind of run the screen share and then walk through kind of the technical part of the features. And then Makayla is going to talk about how she uses the features in her business because one of the great things about Fundy Designer is you can kind of use it however you want. But as a beginner, sometimes that's a little confusing. So this will give you a good starting off point. So let's go ahead and share. I'm going to make sure I share the computer sound. I just figured out how to do that. Do you know how to do that in Zoom so people can hear your slideshows on the other end?
Oh, no, I did not know how to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll have to show me that one.
Pro tip in Zoom, if you're doing a Zoom meeting with your
Sure.
clients, when you click
Yeah.
share screen at the bottom left hand, there's a little checkbox that says share computer sound. And then when you play a slideshow, the music will play through your customer's speakers.
Do you know that is so? But we're not even opening Fundy yet, but that is a huge feature because when we play slideshows, I always have to unplug my headphones so that they can hear the slideshow through my computer audio. But
Now you don't have to.
now I don't have to do that. Look at that. Now you're teaching me stuff here.
Pro tip. Yeah, and you can attest. A lot of people are like, oh, I can't do IPS because my customers are all over the place, and or maybe a lot of customers or Fundy clients live in, for example, LA, and nobody's going to drive cross town in LA. So maybe just talk about how much you can make off IPS just doing screen shares.
Yeah, I mean, so we moved to upstate New York a few years ago from Boston. And so we had to figure out a way we were making so much in in-person sales in just working out of our home in Boston. We didn't want to miss out on that income by going back to gallery sales. So we had to figure out a way to do it virtually. And for a while using different softwares, it was like very clunky to figure out how to make all that work. But with using Fundy, it's literally as simple as what we're doing right now, where you just send them a Zoom link and you share your screen similar to how we're doing for the webinar. And then I can go through the entire album design and wall art mockup process with our clients and essentially emulate the in-person experience just with them from their computer, which is obviously more convenient and you don't have to travel. So yeah, we do that all the time. And I would say our average for virtual sales is maybe like $100 to $300 less than like an in-person experience because there's drinks and experience involved when they're here in person. It is a little bit different, but like, I mean, compared to what we would bring in a gallery sale, like, I mean, thousands extra per client for a virtual sale is huge for us. So
yeah, and you might lose a few $100s, but you don't have to wear pants while you do it. So.
Exactly. You can have like your glass of wine off camera, right? Sweatpants on, and like the world can be crashing in front of you and you're just making money. It's fabulous.
Yeah. All right. So from a beginner standpoint, once you launch the software, this is your dashboard. A lot of times we'll have some kind of new quick tip here, and you can click on the learn more and go to our blog post on that quick tip. Here will be your recent projects. And then here you can create a new project or open a previous project. And you can kind of think about projects as, for example, a Lightroom catalog. So I don't know how you guys do it, but when I was a working wedding photographer, each client would get their own catalog, right? You make a new catalog for each client. And so just like that with Fundy Designer, make a new project for each client. And then that one project can have main album, parent album, wall galleries, cards, as many designs in it as you want, album revision 1, album revision 2, album revision 47. All within that one project. So you want to create one project per client. Here you can see all of these are in black. Sometimes you'll see this file path will show up in red. And that simply means that the hard drive that project is on is not plugged in. It's missing. So a lot of people sometimes will get support tickets. My project disappeared. And we're like, well, do you have that hard drive plugged in? No. Okay, we'll plug it in and then it magically appears. Also, if you can't access that project here because maybe you moved it, just go to the open project here or file, open project, and open that project and you just navigate it like any other project. Let's go ahead and create a new project. Here you can choose where you want to save that project and then the name of the project. And I'll just create, oops, I had a new.
Project 47.
Oh. Yeah, maybe I've had some extra projects here. And then you have a blank project. So down here, we want to import our photos. We can either drag them here, we can use the Add Photos button. And then up here is where we create our designs. So let's go ahead and show you what happens when we drag some photos in. And then Makayla sent us some great projects from real clients that we can, then we'll open that project and kind of go through that design process with everybody. So obviously we can click the add photos and we can just navigate to that folder, select which photos we want to import, but also we can just drag them. And for people out there that maybe use Photo Mechanic, let's say you have a folder with 1,000 images and you can filter down to just the photos you want, and you can drag directly from Photo Mechanic or Bridge or any other file browser right into here. So you just drag them in here, imports the photos, and that's how you import photos. And at any time you can go and import more photos if you want, right? So that's how you create a project and import your photos. Let's go ahead, since this is the beginner's webinar, let's go ahead and stop and see if anybody has any questions there.
We do have a question. Someone is asking about how to kind of clean up the project list, or if you can erase old projects after you've upgraded.
So that project list it's a finite amount, and I can't remember what it is. I think it's like 20 or whatever. So those old projects will just slowly disappear as you create new projects. So I know that sometimes people want to delete them, but it just create your new projects. It will slowly clean itself up. Any other questions? Any questions on importing photos? So the key is they need to be JPEGs. People ask if you can import raw photos, and you can't. The main reason is because you wouldn't be able to see your edits, right? Edits aren't saved in the raw photos for Lightroom in any way that a third-party program can read those raw photos. Okay, so now let's go ahead and open up the wedding that you sent over. And I took the liberty to design a couple thank you cards, so we can give some card examples for people. Yeah.
Perfect.
I can send those back to you if you want to sell them.
I love that. Also, just so I don't think you mentioned this, but for weddings, we actually import the entire gallery. So that's usually like 700 to 800 images. We do import that entire gallery when we're, and the same thing for engagements. Usually that's like 150 to 200 images for an engagement session. And we'll bring it all in so that our clients can kind of see anything that was not incorporated into the design.
So, which is a good point. Probably up to 700 or 800 images, everything's going to function fine. If you get up over 1,000 images, you are going to see Fundy Designer slowing down. It will run slower, and that's just because it's not a file browser at its core. So, there is some give and take on that. So just know that if you are opening those big projects, sometimes it will run a little bit slower. Also, when you're previewing the individual image in the film strip view, which we'll get to, you have a lot of control over how that appears. So for example, is it in here or is it in the view?
What are you looking for?
There is, oh, here we go. So under the view menu, you can toggle the full resolution in the film strip view. So sometimes in the film strip view, when a single image will appear slow, you can toggle that so it will load the proxy image or the smaller images that's in Fundy Designer, and it'll speed it up for you. So let's go ahead and give kind of a quick tour of everything here and all of the views, and then we'll get into the design. So down here are all of your images. So we see here that Makayla has 740 images here. Just to give an example, I have starred and favorited some photos. So basically all of the images that are in the album, I set to a 5-star rating. So I can just filter to that 5-star rating. I also, just to give you an example for slideshows, I favorited using the heart, just about 20 images. So just showing you that you can go through and filter just like you would in, say, Lightroom. So I can click the images that were just used in this design, any unused images, any images that were used in the project. So that means it was in the album design and maybe the wall art design, etc. So filtering from there. And then also we can sort by name or date or status or however we want to sort. So some pretty powerful image sorting functions. And then next over here, we have any background patterns you might want to use, PNGs for cards, etc. You can bring your logo in. I don't know if your logo is in here or not, but a lot of people, for example, will put their logo at the end of the album or on the wall art or something, so you can have your logo stored in there. And then over here is the auto design feature, which we'll show you. Up here is how you create new designs. So you can create new albums, new studio magazines. Here we see a couple albums, and this is how you duplicate an album. So Makayla, maybe you can talk through for people how you use that duplicate album function in your business.
Yeah, so sometimes we'll duplicate an album. For example, this was one of the weddings that we really loved from this year. So we created kind of what we wanted to use as like a sample album first, and that's what we wanted to show them. And then because we were planning on using it as a sample design, even though the client wanted to make tweaks, we didn't want to impact that original design. So we create a duplicate copy, and then we can go ahead and make the changes that the client wants, but still kind of keep the design that we want, so that we can print that as well.
Yeah. And then a lot of people will maybe want to duplicate that main album to create a parent album with fewer pages, or, you know, whatever they don't want to include. You know, I saw there, I was working with Jerry on one of his albums, and he usually likes to include a few boudoir shoots. And I assumed that they will take those pages out for the parent albums, because I don't think any dads really want to see.
Not what they want to remember from the wedding day.
And then here we have examples of wall art. And then cards. We probably won't be going into the collages or branding the images, but these two features are mostly for web products. So creating collages for your blog, branding your photos with your logo to give out to your all of your partners in the industry. You know, for example, the florists. So the ability to send out a group of favorites for your florist or your venues or whatever you use on their blog, and you can slap your logo on there really quickly, and, you know, whatever, however you want to do. Put outlines, you know, color outlines, or put it on top of a whiteboard or whatever you'd like to do. So this is all of your design functions.
And I know we probably won't dive into that, but one of the benefits of doing it in Fundy, because I know there are a bunch of other software programs that you could use to do something like that, but we use Fundy, the image brander, to incorporate the retouching elements, and then that way we can retouch the images very quickly and export them with our logo for social media and things like that, without having to bring them through a million different programs. Yeah,
that's why from a user standpoint, that's why I wanted to add the Perfectly Clear in, is because it just takes out that extra step of going through different programs and stuff. It's really, really lazy way to get good results.
It's effective though. It's fast. And effective.
There's a fine line between being productive and being lazy. So up here at the top is where, you know, all of your user preferences, under the images, this is a feature that you probably will use a lot, is the resync images. So let's say you've retouched some images, or you've moved the original images to a new folder. And so Fundy Designer needs to have access to those original images to export any print file. So if you've moved those, this is how you will resync those. Same thing happens in Lightroom when you move your raw files to a different folder. Here's the view where you can do things like in the wall art, you can toggle on the sizes, right? So we can see how big that wall art is. Also, we have a number of keyboard shortcuts. So N is for file names, S is for sizes, a bunch of different options. In the album, G is for the grid lines and the guides and all of that. So under here is keyboard shortcuts. Here's where you create slideshows. We'll go over that. And then the design library. Maybe you can talk a bit about the design library and what parts you use, because there's a lot in there.
We use the design library mostly for the cards, where we'll kind of bring in a save the date design or use the library designs to just kind of show our clients a mock-up of what their save the date cards could look like. It's also nice because you can kind of export them for web. We can send them like a text message before they even come in for their design appointment, their ordering appointment, and they kind of have an idea of what that will look like. So that way when they get there, we can just like make customizations right in person.
Dave might recommend that you check out this section.
Yeah, we were talking before we went live that if you look on our Instagram account for our studio, every single behind the scenes video of us showing album designs to our client is using the same exact like Fundy wedding song. Like it's the same song for every client. And it's not because it's my favorite song. It's literally just because we get lazy and we're just trying to throw it together before our clients come in. So yeah, we should definitely shake up the songs that we use in our slideshows for sure.
Yeah, I think we added 10 new ones this time around. And then stock rooms are there for the room background. So for example, we can throw in, some different stock rooms.
And they've gotten pretty swanky. I love the new designs.
Yeah, so we did a pretty big update with some of the room designs. So we tried to do like some Cape Cod looks, some farmhouse looks to kind of just bring things up a little, some new staircases and stuff. So there's some cool stuff in there.
And I think what's cool about this too is like you don't have to wait for a client to come in, or you don't have to wait for the opportunity to sell them to use this to your advantage. So we will put together just like even after a client has come in for their sales appointment, we will put together a room just to put it out on Instagram. And people are drawn to that. It's definitely eye-catching. It's not just like, it kind of interrupts the scroll on the feed. And we've gotten DMs specifically from brides that already have their wedding photos that see that like we market prints and will ask us to specifically print their wedding photos for them, which is crazy. So, you can use it for more than just selling to that specific client.
Yeah, we had one of our local photographers was doing just that, and client contacted them. And so they mocked up 3 or 4 rooms and just exported the wall preview and texted the client, and the client ordered a wall for like $2,000.
So crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of fun there. And which is one thing that's so important, and you guys do a great job of, is your Instagram and social media isn't just full of photos, but it's full of like product shots and mock-ups and all of those things.
It's a lot harder for the clients to resist when they see it inside a beautiful home. They can like visualize it on their walls, which is nice.
So here is under the client order section, set up your client pricing, etc. How to add things to the order, which you can do here. You can do that in a couple of places. This is just kind of a quick access to all of the pro enhancements features, log into the design proofer, exporting slideshows, retouching photos, etc. And then all of your help. So remember, there's tutorials, manuals, keyboard shortcuts, contact support. And then Makayla and I, our favorite way to find out the answer to a question is
Google it.
Literally, if you Google Fundy how to and then your question, most of the time there will be a blog post that will walk you through it. That's because we started blogging like 8 years ago. And so we have really good SEO. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes I'll Google something, I'll find like a blog post from like 2011. I'm like, oh, I gotta delete that. It's not pertinent anymore. So this is the main screen. Now let's go ahead and open up the second screen. So Fundy Designer has two screens. You can access that second screen here, or just double click on any individual image. And so within this screen, we have tagging options for auto design, order, creating that client order, editing those photos with Perfectly Clear. And then up here, we have different views, right? So we can go into the grid view, film strip, comparison view, which lets you compare multiple different images with their clients. Right, so that you can compare all those different images. And then this is the design view. If you want to use this client window just as a really big, only showing the design for your client instead of the thumbnails, etc.
We use this a lot when we're showing in person, just because sometimes people want to see things bigger, or they want to be able to pick the best facial expression. So having the ability to just toggle that really quickly while they're here in our sales room makes the process go faster.
And then we have the new theater mode. So anytime you can hit the tab key and go into that theater mode here. And then when you're showing wall art, you can always also just click here and just go really big with that wall art. All right, okay. So that was kind of a quick overview where everything is. Does anybody have any questions before we dive into actually designing things?
I can't see the people commenting on Facebook, so I'm not sure if there's questions there. I don't think we have any questions
I
in the
haven't
chat.
either. So maybe Natalie can comment real quick. I can let me just text her real quick and ask her if there's any questions.
The compare mode is really great too, for when you want to move quickly through the selection process. So a lot of times, clients will get stuck over two images and they end up spending like a ton of time trying to decide between, oh, is this one better? Is this one better? So being able to just extract those few images that they're between and show them right next to each other helps us move the sale along a lot faster.
Yeah, which is really important. Oh wait, I have chat.
Yeah, especially for weddings, because we try and keep our design appointments to under 2.5 hours with weddings, which seems like a lot, but that's us finalizing every detail of the album and the wall art order before they leave. And so even saving a few seconds on each photo is actually huge. So that compare tool, if you're not using it, is super powerful to just keep the sale moving very smoothly.
All right, so somebody said they could only see just our faces, not the screen. So I did a re-screen share, so it may have stopped in between, but some people, not sure what happened there. So one person asked how to import a client room screen. So good question. It's quite simple. So whenever you're in the gallery section and you go and you click on the rooms icon down here at the bottom, you'll see all of these rooms. You can click on the library icon to import rooms from the design library, or you can click on this icon right here to import a client room. And when you click on that, it automatically asks you to measure something in the room and kind of go through that process. So it's pretty straightforward. Also, one thing we added, I'm not sure if you know about this, Makayla, but we added in the design library, having some connectivity problems there. But in the design library, there is a new card design that walks your clients on how to take a picture of their wall.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So you can print those out, or you can just send them the JPEG of the card via email, and it kind of tells them how to do that. Like, take a picture of the wall, make sure you can, like, the edge of the ceiling and the edge of the floor is in the picture. You're not at an angle, kind of that stuff. We had one photographer send us a message to support, and she's like, I don't need support, but I just wanted to let you know this, because it was really funny. She asked the client to take a picture of their wall, and the client literally walked 4 inches from the wall and like sent a picture. It was just, you could just
Of the
see
paint color.
of just the, you could just see kind of the, you know, the bumps in the wall from the texture, and that's all you could see.
Yeah, we get a lot of really awkward photos, especially when they don't understand like it has to be straight on and things like that. So
Yeah.
it just kind of having very explicit directions is helpful. But if you already have done all that work, then that's huge to just be able to download the card.
All right, so let's go ahead and create a new album. So this is the current album. And again, if we wanted to copy that, we would do that here. So remember, anything you want to create from a design standpoint is up here. And then anything with your IPS border, etc., is in the other window. So just remember that. So let's go ahead and create a new album. And then why don't you walk through where what I should choose for this album?
So we use Miller's for most of our albums. So I would typically go ahead and select Miller's, and then we would do the signature album thick pages or thin pages. I mean, the aspect ratio is all the same. So a lot of times we end up having to order the thin pages just because there's so many spreads in there.
Oh, that's a bad problem. They ordered too many spreads
so
and gave you too much money.
But either way, we're not designing the cover in here, so the aspect ratio is the same.
Yep. Okay.
And then we usually by default just go to the 12 by 12. Some of our clients will have a 10 by 10 album, but just because we want to hopefully sell them the biggest album, we'll do the 12 by 12.
Yeah. And then what kind of covers do you usually end up selling?
I usually try and show them like an acrylic cover because that's an upgraded cover. So I want them to see like that wow factor.
Yep.
But you could go with something as simple as like a basic cover as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And just so everybody knows, the basic cover means just that there's no image on the front cover. When you order through Miller's, you can add your embossing or anything like that. But if there's any image whatsoever on the cover, you want to choose something other than that basic. And then I do know some people will choose the photo wrap covers from Miller's, and those are awesome. We don't have those templates in our software because the size of that cover changes anytime you change the page increment, which is kind of a pain in the neck. So you can just download that template from Miller's and then load that in. Do remember though, if they add pages, you're gonna have to re-download a different template and load it in. You won't have to redesign your cover, but you might have to nudge some stuff around.
Yeah, make some tweaks.
All right, okay. So now we have the album open. So what is in your studio? And I know that you don't usually do the first designs anymore.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm a little bit removed from this. So because Fundy has allowed us the opportunity to make so much more in our business, I actually have a full-time associate on payroll that does all of our fund. She's like our Fundy goddess. So Molly pretty much does everything regarding all of our pre-designs. And we actually have a different mindset. So I guess I could share both. I like to basically start by seeing the full gallery and then just like cherry picking out what I want to include in there. She likes to go through and kind of use the rating system and then kind of filter out and then do the auto design feature and then make tweaks from there. So I think personally, it's personal preference and what you feel is more efficient.
And let's show people both workflows because I think that's probably a pretty even split.
Okay.
I think it works. I think it boils down to how people's brains work.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer doing it like Molly does.
Okay.
And that's just kind of how my brain works, but I know a ton of people that like to do it the way you do it. So we will call it the Makayla method.
Okay.
People will probably choose that because you're younger and more vibrant. So the Makayla methods basically go through, and I'm just going to hold down the command key, and on a PC, I think that's the control or the alt key. I forget which one, but basically, let's choose a few images here and just you drag them into this blank area and it will apply a design.
Yep, exactly.
And then here we can click on this icon here and go into the quick design picker, and we can use these little arrows. And then actually, I just wrote a blog post on this that's coming up in the next few weeks. But these little mini arrows let you go through just this particular design. And we can also flip, maybe we want that main image on the other side.
So I also usually, instead of even opening up all the different layouts, because I find we do all of our customizations with the client. So there is there's no kind of like back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
For us, we just find it's easier to complete the workflow. And I find that when I open up all the possibilities for my clients to see all the layouts, then it kind of, it lengthens the customization process. So I like using the numbers keys as like the hotkeys to kind of siphon through or cycle through different designs very quickly just by keeping my hand.
And do you do that with that pre-design also, or just with the clients?
I'll do it with the pre-design to just kind of like, maybe it's out of habit, but I'll do it with the pre-design just so I can quickly see, and then my eye finds something I like and I don't have to keep going.
Yeah. So let's show people that. So really easy. If you hit the space bar, it will flip the design. And then what Makayla's talking about is that you hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, minus, and equal. We'll kind of go through all of those design options. And then just to show you some of the power of the drop zones. So for new people, this orange box is a drop zone, and this is kind of the magic in Fundy Designer. And it lets you do things like, I can take this image and put it on top of those other two images. I can swap a vertical and a horizontal and not have to change anything. And then with the new functions, I can grab right here and just kind of do this. And you'll see that it kind of will pop into place in that center line. So just some kind of nice little cheating functions.
Yeah, those are huge. I mean, that just makes the design process so much faster, because I think as visual artists, we have something in our mind of how we want the layout to look like. And it's just easier than figuring out like how to get there to just move it around. And so I love how in V10 you can do that.
So, maybe your client's saying, I want this ring photo to be a little bit bigger, then you could just kind of do like that really quick for your client. So again, your layout options are up here, the keyboard shortcuts. So be sure to download that keyboard shortcuts, and then some of the functionality within the drop zones. And then also, I referred to this before, but if you hit the G key for guides, so you can turn the guides off, and then also you can add grid lines. So if you are one of those people that are like super, super picky about everything being exactly, those grid lines will give you that. And then you can adjust the, let's see, this grid line setup will let you adjust the size of those grid lines. I think they're set at 1/4 inch by default or something like that. I can't remember. All right. Okay. So how Makayla would do it is she would just go through and kind of cherry pick those images that you want in the album, go through, choose those designs that you want, and kind of go on that way there, and realize you can also move your spreads around. So that is, designing spread by spread. And in the video tutorials, we kind of go over how to do that also. Now let's kind of show you how Molly probably does it. She'll, after bringing all the images in, go through and choose a tag. So for example, 5 stars, right? And you can just do that by hitting the 5 key. And you go through, and everything you want to be in the album, you can hit on the 5 key. And then when you're done, we can filter down to just the 5 stars. So here's just the 5 stars. And we can also do things like, take a look here where we have the groom, and then we have a shot of the dress, and then the bride. So if we use the auto design, it's probably going to mix all of those together. So what we can do is we can select these bride photos right here and hit the G key and group those together to kind of bypass that. So now when we hit the auto design, it's not going to mix in these bride shots with the groom shots. And then here's another example that could be mixed in. So I'm going to choose these guys here. And there we go. Oops. And then I'm going to hit the G key, or that under the tag, the group options. So with the auto design, you can kind of have control. So for example, here is a good example where we might hit the P key for a panorama. So that'll be a double page pano, right? And then there was another one I saw in here too that was definitely a double page pano. Where did I see that? Oh, there we go. Right, it's that big black and white shot. So with the auto design, you can tag what you want to be a cover. You can tag the pano. You can group things together. And now when we do the auto design, it's going to respect those things that we've said. So let's go ahead and auto design. So I filter down to just the start image, not all of the images. So now we open the auto design. Under here, we'll do just filtered images. So now we have that 145. And then we can do, how many pages do you usually start off with?
Usually at least 200 pages.
200 pages.
It sounds silly, but
Yeah. So for this, let's go ahead and do like 120. How many, I know this is a big question always from photographers, especially people that are new to album design, is what are your average number of images per spread?
Usually we try and stay under that 4 image per spread, 5 image per spread. So that would probably be the busiest spread that we're looking to design. And then of course you want to have like your panos and things like that. I would say on average, the way that I like it would probably be about 3 images per spread.
Yeah. And then Michelle asked if Fundy will import star ratings from Lightroom. Yes. So Lightroom, Photo Mechanic, any star ratings that you've done in one of those programs will transfer over. And if, for example, you've changed the star ratings in Fundy and you want to rewrite those back to the JPEGs, or you have updated star ratings using Photo Mechanic, for example, and you want to re-import those, under the Images menu, there is the read ratings and keywords from files and then write those to the file. So you can redo all of that from there. So now we have 120 pages. There's a bunch of different options here. You can go take a look at the auto design tutorials for all of those things that they do. But pretty much, I recommend just using it out of the box when you first start using it. And now I'm going to hit the design.
And Vladimir asked a question. He said, who gets to decide what goes into the album? So just to answer that question, for us, we pre-design everything. So we will select what we want to go in the album. And then when we present it to the client, they will have to decide if they'd like to go with the design that we presented, or if they want to kind of narrow it down or adjust the design or swap out any photos.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think that you're on the same page. If you really want to make albums a cornerstone of your business as a revenue generator, you really have to be the designer.
Yeah.
Or the person who chooses what photos go into that initial design.
And then Mandy also asked Fundy where that card can be about, where that card is again about how to design or how to take photos of the walls.
Yeah. So in the design library, and sometimes when I'm on a webinar, because we're screen sharing over the internet, sometimes it won't let me access the design library. That's what happened. But if you go to the download card designs, and in the design library, you can filter by card type. There's a client how-to filter.
And now that is included in the pro enhancements, correct?
Correct. Yep. So in the design library, there are a few cards that are included for free without pro enhancements, but the majority of them you need pro enhancements, as well as the studio magazines, songs, etc. And we're always adding to that. And the pro enhancements includes the design library, the online proofer, and the skin retouching for $179 a year. And we're already always adding. And we added, like, if you would have a la carte it, we added like $2,000 worth of new stuff just this January if you were to like go to Creative Market and a la carte, all of those things.
Yeah, I know. I think, and I think that's a great point that a lot of people don't think about. If you're using the pro enhancements to help market your business, it pays off by like multitude amounts. So it sounds, it's so funny because I hear all the time people are like, well, are the pro enhancements worth it? And it's like I could give a quarter of my business to Fundy and it would be worth it. Like I would pay thousands of dollars a year just to use this software because it generates so much money. But we use a lot of the tools. We use it for marketing. We use it to attract clients that, these types of products would resonate with. So if you are doing that and you are using even a fraction of the tools that are available to you, it's totally worth it.
So, and we'll get to that, just, the skin retouching. How long does it take you to retouch a wedding? And if you use the skin retouching, 2 weddings and it's paid for itself. So I deleted that cover photo because it wasn't a good cover photo. And then let's go ahead and go through here and find a cover photo. And that's why I like to, when I use the auto design, I really like to tag that cover photo because now we're doing this where we're hunting down the cover photo, and we're going to have to like remove this image that I want on the cover and then filter down to my unused images that are 5-star. And then go back up. So I'm just kind of creating some extra work for myself to try to figure out what I've used and what I haven't used and all of that stuff. So if you want to be lazy, that using the cover photo tags and the panorama tags and stuff really help you be pretty lazy, which is nice. And then you'll also notice here that how I quickly found those images is I filtered to the stars and unused images. Right, so those are the images that I haven't used because I removed them from a spread, and now I need to put this back in somewhere. So I'm going to grab this guy and let's go ahead and just drop it. Let's drop him just right there. So from here, we've designed the album. And now we have a few choices with that album design, right? So we can do quite a few different things, right? We can export that album. We can export for Proofer and show that in the Proofer. We can go into a slideshow. So under here, the export options, so we can have those export options so I can order direct from the lab, export for print, export for Proofer, export for web, splits if you need to do single pages, and then some options for design sets. So design sets, basically anything you design in Fundy Designer, you can save as a template or a design set and then reuse that. So how often do you use the Proofer with your clients and in what situations?
So this is one thing that we used a lot when we first started using Fundy because it was so easy. I think just logistically for us, it became too much. It would take people too long to get back to us. And even if we had, time limits on the Proofer and things like that and too many follow-ups, it was too much back and forth time. So we now, because of how quick and easy it is to, especially with version 10, adjust the designs right there with our client, we don't go into Proofer at all, unless it's for like a parent album or some type of like add-on album, not the main album for the client. I think it's a really powerful tool. We were finding that because it was so easy for people to just let it live online, that we weren't finalizing the albums and getting them into our clients' hands fast enough.
Yeah. So Michelle asked about showing for the Proofer. So a few different ways people use the Proofer. Some people who don't use IPS always use the Proofer with clients. Scott Johnson in the UK, he does IPS with his albums, but he will send a Proofer link without the comment section the morning of his IPS. just so the clients have just one day to flip through that album and kind of, it's just enough time for them to fall in love with the design, but not enough time for them to start criticizing it. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. That's a great point.
Yeah. So not a day before, morning of. It's like, hey, here's your design. We'll be going over and finalizing this today. And it kind of speeds up that process for him.
We've also used it as like I don't know if you plan to get in like into the marketing books and things like that, but we've used it to design a marketing piece and then just have kind of an online place where we can show people. So like at a bridal show, we can have people flip through a proofed album, but really it's like an online PDF of them being able to see more information or to see a sample album, things like that.
So let's go ahead and show you guys just the back end of the proofer. So, oh, come on. Just so you can kind of see what it looks like. So after you export for proofer, you can create a new proof, but this is kind of how it would look. So let's see, I have a v10 test. I have no idea what that looks like. So this could be a very bad album. Oh, it's not. Oh, it's my son, Joe. It's his album, not by T-Man. Can you guys hear the music through your speakers? So this is what it would look like. And then from here, they can either approve that design or request changes. And that might have been that song that you use all the time. And then here's what the proofer looks like. That wasn't it? That's a good one. That's a crier. And so the client anytime can click on this comment section and they can make comments and, you know, please change this. Oh, my son would kill me if he knew that showing the photos. And then they click finish and you would get an email saying that they'd finished. And so you can go in and check all of those changes and stuff. Isn't it cutie?
I love these photos. This is great. We do have a few questions if that's okay to pause it for a second. So Jennifer asked, if you start with 125 pages, assuming the client pays by page, can you reformat it to drop it to 100 pages? I think, so you can absolutely reformat it and redesign it, but I think the point is when you start by showing them 125 pages, they need to choose what they want to remove from the album. So you're actually reformatting it right there with them by them saying like, okay, we don't need this page. Let's take out that one. And that's like a really heart-wrenching thing for your clients to do, especially about like their beautiful once in a lifetime day. So if you do it this way, you do end up, you end up selling thousands of dollars more because your clients, it's very difficult for them to take it out. But if, for example, I had a client that was like, no, we only want to go with like the 30-page album that was originally in our contract, and I wanted to like just completely design it and keep it to those boundaries, we could do that. It might require a little bit more work because then essentially you'd have to go back in and swap out the photos. But you can do that in Fundy. You can restrict the pages. Yeah. And then Vladimir also asked, does the client know how many images are going into an album or how many pages? So we start our weddings with our base, or like our minimal collection includes the first 30 pages, which is 15 spreads, which is not a huge, robust wedding album. And that's how we'll explain it to the client. It's really just more of a modest album. But then at least you walk away with something. And I always tell them, like, if we do our jobs and we blow you guys away, you know, we're going to design an album that's 100, 200 pages. It's going to be difficult for you guys to select what you want from that. So just make sure you're preparing for that investment. And it's kind of like a joke. Our clients, you know, we kind of go back and forth about like how, how it's going to be more than they originally wanted, but that's kind of us doing our job. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy. Basically, if you design 120 pages, then you tell the client, oh, you can only get up to 100 pages in your album. You're basically using a psychological technique to sell them 100 pages because they're not going to go below that 100 pages, right? Or if they want to keep them all, then you just sold the double volume. Okay, so this basically, we've gone through most of the album design. Let's touch basically just on the wall art. And how to design that. Pretty easy to design the wall art. To make a new room, just drop that room in there. Oh, we have an empty room.
Ooh, that's a pretty one. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it's new.
I like that guy.
Yeah. Right, and then let's get some shots here. And what are you, while I'm looking, finding the couple shots, what are your best sellers for wall art?
So we sell a lot of, so similar to kind of what you see there. I don't know if that was one of our designs or one of
It
yours,
was,
but
yeah.
so we sell a lot of the 3-piece, and it's probably because if you see right behind me, what you see when you walk into our studio is this 3-piece 20 by 30 full bleed set. So it's probably psychologically because that's the first thing our clients see every single time they come into our studio.
Mm-hmm.
But also because we get a lot of couples that don't necessarily have their like quote unquote forever home. So the way that we kind of walk them through this is like, well, you could get 3 different pieces, and right now just display one or kind of separate it on different smaller walls. And then when you move into, you know, your forever home or a bigger home, it's kind of like redecorating and you have a whole new a brand new piece of wall art. So that's probably our more popular one.
So to bring images in, we'll just drop them in. It'll kind of auto do a design. And then you can also apply any designs. So the layouts work very much like the layouts in the album designer. So I can choose that. And right now we have frame prints chosen. And if you move it, it'll just kind of jump between those options. So it looks like we're at the max size for that frame print. And so we'll bring that in there. Now let's go ahead and choose our frame and the matte size. Right? And then we just space this out. So remember with wall art, you don't want to drag the image because that'll actually move that image to a new location. You drag the little orange bar. And you see the guidelines kind of pop up, and there you go. Now, the great thing is if we love this layout, we can just save that to our collections, right? Name it, and then price it. How much would that sucker be, you think?
Oh, sorry. I was popping in the comment section.
Okay.
What do we have? We had a 3-piece collection.
Yeah, but one was a big horizontal and 2 verticals.
Ooh, I don't know. Probably like 2,900 maybe.
Right. So now we have this saved
Oh,
collection.
that's pretty.
Yeah, look at that. So now we can apply that at any time, right? So let's say they wanted different images and you were designing something. We can go into our layouts. We can apply that and then just drop those images in somewhere. So maybe they wanted, you know, these guys here. So now I just drop that in there.
So Jennifer also asked a question about when you choose a lab, does that automatically filter the selections for the frame corners? Which I don't think it does. Yeah,
no, it does not. So frame corners is one of those things that is really difficult for us to organize with all of the labs because they're always changing frame corners and all of that. So that's one of those things that we really need to just leave it up to you guys, what you want to offer. So we just recommend, you know, choose your frame. We do have the Design-A-Glow ones in there. But other than that, you just choose your frame images that you want to sell, and then those are the only ones that you work with.
Yeah, you can remove the images or the corners that you don't want to sell.
Yeah, so I really recommend that you just kind of bring those in there, remove any that you don't want to sell, and just have those ones in there that you do want to sell. So that's kind of how you design wall art and save those collections. Obviously, you're going to want to watch the tutorials to kind of go through that process. But now that I've priced this, if we go ahead and want to add that gallery to our client order, it's going to, this is the room 2 that I did. It'll automatically pull that pricing in so I can add that. And now it's in their client invoice. So any questions on wall art before we move on? Oh, let me show you one more thing. Up here at the top left, this is where you choose, like maybe we want to do gallery wraps instead of frame prints. So that's how you do that. And then if you double click on this image, you can see where that wrap is going to happen. So the green, inside the green is that front part of the canvas, and then the edges is here, and then the red is what wraps around the back.
And that's really huge because I don't know, like if you're a photographer like me, I would sell a canvas gallery wrap and not realize that it was wrapping an important part of the image. And then I would have to spend like days photoshopping like a fake edge or a mirrored edge or something onto. And so this is huge because I can just do it before I actually sell it like an idiot and show the client where the wrap is going to be. And we can make the decision before I commit to something that I can't order.
And one thing that you can do is if you have a photo where, like, for example, here, it looks like we might be cutting off her feet and you just don't want to do that, you can change this to color wrap. And then when I click here, we can sample a color, right? We can sample, say, you know, maybe this dark part of this build. Ooh, that did not work out how I wanted it to. Let's go back in here. Maybe the lighter color is the, okay, there that's a little bit more palatable, or just black or whatever. So you can play with those edges, the color of those edges, if you want to show that full, like we want to see the bottom of her dress here. Or if you really are not good with colors like me, you can always just go with a black edge or a dark gray edge. There we go. It's really hard to mess up with black and dark gray. And then same thing with the albums, right? We can export wall previews. We can export for print, order direct for a lot of those things. You can export for proofer with walls. Like, let's say you want to design 10 walls for your client, and you can export that for proofer and upload and send them a link, and they can kind of flip through those walls and choose which ones they like. And now, last part of this, and for those that really want to focus on IPS, we'll be doing another IPS webinar next month, but we do have an older IPS webinar with you, Makayla, and a few different people to go through. So you can always go through and search through our webinars. You can find those in the videos section of the Facebook group or on the website in the blog section.
Yeah, and I think what's great about this is like, even if you're just diving into in-person sales or you're kind of fearful about the idea of doing it, you don't really have much to lose with this. You're losing a lot by just not even trying. So even if you don't have a studio, or you just want to like dabble into virtual sales, you know, just start and just practice, because I think you'd be surprised by how easy it is. And once your clients are seeing it right in front of their face, it's very easy to make a lot more money. So yeah. Olivia says she's tried designing wall art for practice and some of the standard layouts would not show up or they would not work. I don't know, that seems more like a support thing.
Yeah, I would contact support. So remember, the standard layouts will only show options if you have photos on the room already, right? Because it's auto designing based on what photos you have in there. So if you don't have any photos on the room and you click the layouts, they will show up blank if there's nothing there. So that might be what you are experiencing. The saved layouts that you've saved, since those are actual sizes that you saved that are static, those will show up whether you have images on that wall or not. So that's probably what you're experiencing.
Yeah, she said that helped. So hopefully that's...
Yeah, okay, good. So, and then here's an example of a thank you card that we've designed. You know, I know one of our ambassadors, Vanessa Joy, she gives free thank you cards to all of her clients because on the back of the card is her logo and her website and her phone number and everything else.
Business cards going out to all your friends.
Yeah, it's basically a business card that your clients pay postage on for you. So we've designed a few things. Here is an example of, we've only added one thing, but here's an example of a client order. Oh, that gallery didn't get added. So let's say we've added that client gallery, and then, you know, here's an example order. We don't have much in it, and I'm not going to really go over that, but that's just where that is. In the tutorial section, there's a section on creating your client pricing, and then a client orders section that kind of walk you through that. Well, we didn't go over the retouching.
I'm Jennifer asked, he didn't choose a lab before he started, use generic.
Yep.
Is that what you selected?
I'm not sure.
Generic standard. Okay.
It was whatever you had selected in that previous.
Yeah, sometimes like if we don't know what the client's going to order, because we offer like one barnwood frame from like Locta, and so like if we don't know exactly what the client's going to order, really the point is to just show them the collection and sell it to them. Like it's our job to know what's available through which lab. So a lot of times we'll use generic standard to design a gallery collection, just to kind of show the client and let them see what they could be having.
And with wall art, it isn't as dangerous of not knowing, of choosing the correct lab, because wall art standards are pretty standard. You know, no matter what you sell, you'll be able to find a place that can print it. You know, and a 16 by 20 is the exact same size for any lab in the world, right? So it's not like you're going to get in trouble. So starting with that generic is a really good place to start. And then, you know, choose, for example, Miller's if you know that I just order all my wall art through Miller's. But if you sometimes order some wall art here and some wall art there, then you definitely want to choose that generic, because then you can order wherever you want. So let's talk a little bit about the retouching, just to give a quick preview, and then I'll go over the slideshow, and then we'll get you out of here because I know you're busy. Even though your kids did go to school, there was no snow day, so you should be free all day long.
Always free for Fundy.
Yeah. So let's talk about your settings here. This was a project that you did before V10, so maybe talk about how you use the retouching before, and then how you might use it with some of the additional sliders and stuff that are available now.
Yeah, so before V10, when you didn't have full control, we used to use Intelligent Retouch a lot. It was just one of the it became like the preset that was our favorite, just because it gave you a little bit of a pop, but not something that was overly done. So honestly, what I loved about it was that you could do a light retouch, and a client would love the way she looked, but she wouldn't necessarily know that we did anything to her. So that's what I love about.
Yeah, let's do a little before and after here. So this is before I cleared that, and then I'll just hit the Intelligent Retouch here.
Yeah, so it just like softens her up a little bit. It doesn't, you know, it's not overdone. But I mean, now that you have with V10, you have full control. So if there's a particular lighting situation that's a little bit different, and maybe you can see some of those under eye circles a little bit more, or a little bit of a harsher light that's hitting her skin in an unflattering way, you can smooth it a little bit more. It just gives you more control.
So let's just do a little bit more under eye here so everybody can see that. Just a little bit. It's so subtle. Just a little bit. And we also have, you know, eye enhancement, which basically just brightens the eyes. We can go going all the way is a lot of fun. Whoa.
But what's also really cool about how quick this is like, for instance, I did a headshot session yesterday. I don't do like in-person sales necessarily for a headshot session, but I can instantly, it's almost like showing them retouch versions within 30 minutes just by dragging them into Fundy and letting them select the images that they want. So it's just so fast and easy to just give a little bit of an elevated look versus showing someone a photo. I think especially with like older people, when you dive into like headshots, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't look like, you know, and so just being able to show them a retouch photo that quickly is super helpful.
And so everybody can see, so basically you can retouch one photo, and then you can just select a few more next to it, or all of them, and you just hit the sync button, and then just like in Lightroom, sync those settings. So, you know, you can retouch a whole wedding in not very much time at all.
Michelle asks, is there the ability to color adjust without having to go to an external editor? I'm not entirely sure if she's saying like edit the photo.
Color adjustments. It's really outside of our scope. But one of the features that I highly recommend, and you can, if you go to fundy.com/guides, in our workflow guide, we kind of go over this. But under images, you can get a list for Lightroom. And basically what this does is it pulls just the images in the designs that you've used, not the whole wedding. and then you can paste that into the Lightroom search bar, and then you can color just only those images and then just re-export those JPEGs. So while yes, you do have to go back, we kind of take a lot of that work of like having to find out which images you need to access and all of that stuff. So a little bit of work. We did a little bit of the work for you. So now let's kind of just show that slideshow setup for people and play just a little bit of the slideshow. So like I said at the beginning, we favorited a few images. We've designed an album. We've got some card options. We've got some wall art options. So let's go create slideshow. So this is kind of a simple slideshow setup. So a title slide. We're only going to show the favorite images. You know, we'll show, you know, your album. And then the actual album. And then we will show, let's add another title, you know, wall art for your home. Put that up there, we'll remove that. And then another, thank you card. And then the card slide. Let's go ahead, the background color is black, so let's go ahead and make it white for all of the titles. Oops. Right, and then we have our song. We can match that length of the song and the music. You can set your timing for your images and your album spread separately. So there's a bunch of options here, but the most important thing is kind of building out that slideshow for sales.
And then you can do all this and save it, so that way you're not doing this in front of the client as well.
Exactly, yeah. So I can hit save, and then when I open that up, and you know, once you've created this format, this is basically your default. So when you create a new project, it's going to open up just like this. And as long as you've tagged everything and you have your album, like, you don't need to change anything. So this, you can really just create this once and you're done. Which
is why all my songs are the same, because I got lazy and don't change anything.
It is fairly easy to swap out the song. Let's just
I do need to do that.
You can delete this and you can change the song pretty easily right there. So here's the slideshow. Let's go ahead and play this, and we'll let it go into the album section. We don't need to go into the wall art and the thank you card, because that'll be a pretty long slideshow, but I kind of want everybody to see this. And I think the most important thing is that I know a lot of photographers that they'll sit down, they'll do a slideshow of like 300 images for their clients, which is really cool. And I think it makes a photographer feel good, because then the client's like, oh, wow, I love my images, but it doesn't make you any money. Right? So
it lengthens the sale too long. The client gets exhausted and then they can't make decisions.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and do this. We'll go, I'm going to make the images go fast. Just 1 second. And then we'll go into the album designs. Can you hear the music on your side?
Yep.
Yeah, see, we did the thing.
So great.
Yeah. And it makes the music sound a lot better, because then it's playing directly from the computer instead of like through the microphone and the speakers.
I like this song. I'm going to have to add this one.
Did you see what it was?
No.
I think it's Senior Song 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You're going to have to tell Dave that he
Everyone's our whole studio is gonna be like, what the heck happened? We changed the song.
Yeah. Well, it's being recorded too. There's evidence. So one thing also to notice is that if the original files are not available, which I don't have the original files, I just have the project, they might be a little fuzzy on the screen. But under that, under your the edit menu or the images menu, you can set your preferences to make those proxy images bigger, which will make your slideshows a little clearer for the individual images, but it might slow down the program. So it's kind of like finding your sweet spot. Now you see we've gone into the album design, and this is really where this is the moneymaker, right? We're doing a slideshow of the thing that you want to do versus the slideshow of this. And then once the album the title screen, all art options and the card, etc. Go ahead and stop that. So now, so that's kind of the beginner's walkthrough. And what I really want everybody to get is kind of the pieces and how you can get started. But then from there, it's really about learning all of the individual tools within the program and kind of making it your own workflow, because you can make your own workflow. All the pieces, you can do everything in different orders, you can whatever you want. So it's kind of finding your sweet spot.
And I think like initially when you see new features, it feels a little bit overwhelming. Like you would never be able to do that in front of a client. I remember learning it myself for the first time and being like, I don't know if I can do that with a client, but it becomes such second nature even after just a few times like diving into the program. So don't be afraid to just play around or even do like a mock sale with one of your friends or family members just to get more familiar with everything. But it's super easy once you're using it.
Yeah. So I mean, I really recommend if it's your first time using a program, and this is just in general, don't try to learn how the program works and design an album 2 hours before your clients are coming. That's not the way to do it. I've had people, post on Facebook about that and it's like, well, that's not, that's just not realistic. Right. So, import some, design a family album and order your family album from last year, because everybody's really bad at printing their own family photos. Have you done your family album from last year yet?
Yeah, I did.
Did?
Miller's had a sample sale. You got to take advantage of that.
You're ahead of me. I got to do mine. I'm behind on 2019. So, start off with that. Pull in your family photos from last year and do a practice sales session with your spouse for selling some wall art and Christmas cards or whatever. But practice in some non-dangerous ways and get comfortable with it. And then also know, and you can probably speak better to this, is that designing and showing designs to your client and selling, it's a skill just like anything else.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the first time you used off-camera flash. If you're like me, you suck. Like it took a few dozen times to really get dialed in. And it's a skill, so the first couple times you do it, you might suck, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just like anything, it takes practice. Sales takes practice. Learning new software takes practice. But I mean, we'll have clients that are kind of in awe by how quickly we can design the full album and get it customized to the way that they like it, just because of the hotkeys and how easy it is to maneuver in the software. So you'll get there.
Yeah, you'll get there. And don't be afraid to just kind of do. My favorite story, and I probably shouldn't tell people the stories. My favorite story is the time you text me and you couldn't open a project because of the.
You can't tell people that story because now everyone's going to want your phone number.
It was I think probably what happened is the Dropbox sync glitched or something, and the project was corrupt, so it just wouldn't open. And you texted me and the project wouldn't open. My clients are going to be here in 15 minutes, and I'm like, sorry. But then tell them what happened. True. Tell them what you did.
It's true. We were able to redesign the album before the client got there, and the sale was totally fine. Nobody knew the difference
with the auto design.
Yeah, I literally I didn't even have time to go through and tweak it. I just had to go based on the auto design, which was super scary because I never even saw the album. I literally just presented it to them. But, and then when we went through spread by spread, I just kind of would quickly maneuver things before it was able to sink in for them. But we still landed the sale. So it's not an ideal.
How many extra spreads did you sell?
I have no idea. Do you remember? I don't remember.
You said you had a $6,000 sale.
Oh my gosh, you're probably right. You would remember that. You would remember that.
Well, yeah, it's a great quote. The auto design made you $6,000.
The day that Fundy saved me. That's true. It's true. And it's happened on more than one occasion. I mean, we've had a situation, not that I'm proud of this, but we've had a situation where we didn't remember we offered a client to do a same day sale for an engagement session. And we like wrap up to say goodbye after the shoot. And they're like, oh, we're coming in
Yeah,
an
we'll see you
hour.
in 20
Yeah, we'll
minutes.
see you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we have to get it together. But so there have definitely been emergency situations where, the ease of the software has definitely saved us on top of making us thousands of dollars, which is nice.
That's the life of a creative. Like, we're not good at schedules. I can't remember how many times I'll walk in the office and, you know, one of the staff's like, oh, you have this thing in 30 minutes. I thought you're going to be late. And I was like, oh, yeah, I knew that.
Nope.
All right. So really hope that helped anybody. Any last questions as we close out? Feel free to pop those in. We'll continue to answer questions on the Facebook group and page for people. And then just always remember, you can Google Fundy how to design a parent album, how to do IPS, you know, the videos and video tutorials and the manuals, contacting support. A lot of
Adriana
resources
asked a question. She said, which size and resolution for the images do you use to design albums and for slideshows? I'm not sure if that's...
always just export full resolution images from Lightroom, and Fundy will do all of the resizing for you. Never, ever try to resize images, especially for Fundy Designer, because what's going to happen is you will forget, you'll export the album for print, and you'll get fuzzy images back, and then you'll submit a support ticket, and we'll be like, sorry, you didn't export your full resolution. So always, from Lightroom, just export full resolution JPEGs, and then import those into Fundy, and we take care of everything for you.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, if like you did a weird crop in Lightroom or something and you're trying to do a full page spread, like it'll usually toggle a little warning for you that says like it can't be printed or something like that. So
yeah. And remember, when you get those warnings, if you hover your mouse over, it'll tell you how much Fundy Designer will upsize for you. We have a blog post where we show a side by side 400% upsize compared to Photoshop, and you can't really tell. So unless it's over 200 or 250%, I really wouldn't worry about it. And if you are a little worried, just export for print and then pull it up in Photoshop and just check and see if you're comfortable with that upsizing.
And then Meredith asked about the magazine function, which we didn't go over, but I know you guys have a ton of resources on your blog in terms of like how to use them, use the album design feature to design books and magazines.
Super easy. You just click New Studio Magazine. You can download even more templates from the design library. Miller's, you can direct order, or you can export for print, order through anybody. You literally just start off with your template that you like and hit start, and then everything is pre-designed and pre-written, and you just start dropping in images. So designing a studio magazine is pretty much just like designing an album, except there's pre-written text for you to go through and make changes to.
Yeah, this is awesome because it's like there's no more excuses anymore. We used to put off projects like this because it was like too much work to design manually, but this makes it so easy. And then you can just kind of save it as we kind of save one Fundy Designer catalog just for like our studio marketing stuff. So like every bridal show we can go in and update. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's your magazine's kind of going to be from your like portfolio images. You're also going to want to import photos of your albums, like product shots, and then also export wall previews and then bring them back in to so you can show off those. And if you go to the fundy.com/guides, there's a studio setup guide, and that kind of goes through some of those pieces also. But if you go through like if you just Google Fundy how to design studio magazine or how to magazines, there's a lot of blog posts and videos, and there's webinars on magazine designs that kind of walk you through that. It's not very hard. Like if you just go New Studio Magazine, it kind of walks you through that process. And then Merit asks, leave behinds for planners and florists and shows and stuff, etc. Right, which is really good. And then there's also cards that match the magazine. So if you don't want to leave a magazine somewhere because it's kind of too expensive to print too many copies, you can leave behind cards too.
Yeah, we use the magazines after a client comes in for a consult, but for a bridal show, we use the cards and just kind of hand them out so that people, we put like a picture of our studio on the back so people are enticed to come in for a consultation.
Yeah, and for the magazines, if you export for print, you can usually find a local press printing company, and you can get the magazine cost down to like 75 cents a piece if you print.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or something, yeah. So that's a good thing to check, because the Miller's magazines are beautiful, but they're $4 a pop, right? So those are just for your clients that come in. But if you have a bridal show, you can really get those costs down quite a bit by going through just a press printing company.
Cool. Good to know.
Cool. All right. Well, we are going to have to let Makayla go because we can't keep her all day long. Dave wants some time with her, I'm sure. So if you have any questions, you can go to the Storyteller page or group. You can go to the Printographers group. And then also, if you are really stuck with IPS, Makayla does awesome mentoring, and
thank you.
Has a ton of success stories getting you up to where you're matching your booking with your after sales, right? So if you're booking $1,000 clients, get an extra $4,000 throughout that engagement and wedding section.
Yeah, for sure.
So hop into the Printographers group also, and we can maybe post the link to that group in some of the comments on the Facebook on the Facebook stream also.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah. So thank you. And then Makayla will not be giving out my cell phone number. So
you cannot harass Fundy for support questions 15 minutes before your sale. Sorry.
Hopefully this summer we can release a video of her and Dave coming and visiting and skydiving.
I know. We got to make that happen. That would be so fun.
Okay, everybody. You take care. Makayla, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Fundy. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.